Seema married young, the kind of young that still believes promises can keep out the cold. She married into a household that smelled of spices and late-night tea, where 3 generations lived under one roof, a bright idea for a joint family on paper, a pressure cooker in real life. Her husband, Arif, had once been warm. In the beginning, he held her hand in crowded markets and teased her in front of his friends. But years had shaped him into something else, strict, moody, as if temperament were a debt he'd inherited and owed the world. And then there was her mother-in-law, Razia, a woman with a narrow smile and opinions like sharp teacups. Razia loved rules the way some people love prayer. Everything had a place. Every word belonged only in the right tone. Seema learned quickly that some words could trigger storms. They called Seema, the new one for the first 2 years, a polite distance that felt like a measured cold. She tried to fill her days with small chores, cooking the way RF's mother liked, washing the way the house preferred. She said yes when asked, of course, when corrected, and smiled when the silence pressed against her chest. It was easier to survive if you moved like a shadow. Sound, kettle boiling, plates clinking. Close-up ambience of a busy kitchen. Narrator Razia's complaints began as small arrows. You didn't mash the potatoes right. You folded the shawls messy, but arrows sharpen with time. They started landing where it hurt. Razia. Cool, precise. Seema, you don't know how to hurry. The guests will be here in an hour. Seema, soft. I'm coming, Amma. I'll finish the doll right now. Narrator. Her husband would stand in the doorway, arms folded, the same expression each time. Quiet disapproval. As if her mistakes were personal affronts to him. RIF without warmth. Finish it before they arrive. Don't make the house look bad. Seema nodded. It was simpler than arguing. It was safer. Music becomes more intimate internal monologue feel. Narrator. Seema's world narrowed into routines and small silences. She spoke less at family gatherings. She learned how to make tea exactly to Razia's liking. How to arrange the sofa cushions to the centimeter. How to accept a glare without flinching. Her friends told her to be patient. Families are like that. They said, but patience is a leaky shield when the rain keeps coming, late at night. She would sit by the window with a cup of chamomile, watching their small street breathe under the lampposts. She'd finger the faded threads of her wedding scarf and remember the promise. Love will shelter us. The promise felt like a stranger then, and yet she wasn't weak. In the quiet, she kept a secret, a list of small victories only she recorded in her head. She'd cooked a dish perfectly once, and Arif smiled for a second that felt like the old times. She managed to get through a week when Razia criticized everything and didn't cry. These were tiny rebellions, but they were hers. Sound, raised voices in the living room, tense strings in background. Narrator, then the patterns shifted. Razia's remarks turned from sharp to poisonous. She started using the words that cut deeper than any slap accusations aimed at Seema's character. Razia loud, accusatory. Why is the lamp not dusted properly? I swear, you treat this home like a guest house. People will see. People will talk. Seema softly. Amma, I was preparing lunch. I'll do it after I finish Razia cutting. You're always late. You're careless. No wonder you can't keep Arif comfortable. Arif looked up from his phone, expression unreadable. A silence stretched, the kind that says he has heard it all before. ARIF flat. Just do what you're told. Seema, narrator. The words stung because they were public, said with guests nearby, said when families sat and watched. She felt exposed, as if her failures were being auctioned. That night, locked in the small darkness of her room, she cried once, not loud, just a sound that dissolved into the sheets. It wasn't even for herself, she realized. It was for the girl she had been before. Expectations and judgments started telling her who she should be. Piano, low, contemplative. Seen Seema with her younger sister visiting, offering respite. Narrator Seema's anchor was brief visits from her sister. Farah would bring stories of home, of a job she loved, of laughter so free it sounded like music. During those visits, Seema would be the sister again, the one who joked, who planned, who imagined horizon lines. Farah saw the woman beneath the chores. And in her eyes, Seema found a fragile courage. "You don't have to take everything," Farah would tell her one evening as they sat in the cramped kitchen. "You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be treated like a partner, not a scapegoat." Seema wanted to believe it. She wanted to be brave. But bravery has costs. And in a household where love is rationed, courage can feel like a theft. Sound, tension, a single dispute escalates. Crescendo strings. Narrator, the breaking point arrived in an ordinary way. Under fluorescent lights and a heap of unwashed dishes, Razia barged into the kitchen the morning after a late night. And her face looked like a judge's gavel. "Razia sharp. The floor is sticky. The curtains, who dusted them? Arif, look at this mess. Arif cold now, clipped. She should know better." Seema's hands trembled as she reached for a dish. Her heart felt like a trapped bird in her chest. This time, the accusation wasn't about the dust. It was about something deeper. Razia stepped forward and in front of neighbors and relatives who dropped by unexpectedly. She said something that would change the calm into storm. Razia loud, scornful, "You know, sometimes I think we made a mistake marrying Arif to someone who can't handle housework. Maybe if you'd done things right from the start, he wouldn't be so tense all the time." The words landed like stones. People's eyes glanced at Arif as if seeking confirmation. He didn't look at her. He looked away, the dismissal like a door slamming. Seema felt a heat rise in her chest, not shame this time, but fury. Fury at being reduced to a list of chores. Fury that every small failure was paraded like evidence against her humanity. Fury that the man she loved did not defend her. She wanted to speak. Something in her wanted to shout, to say, "I am more than your list. I am whole." But the house had trained her to swallow words instead. She walked out of the kitchen, tears burning, and fled to the balcony where the night air hit her like cool truth. Music becomes quieter, a heartbeat rhythm. Internal resolve forming. Narrator, that night. Seema lay awake and made a promise that tasted like iron and honey. She would not allow her life to be narrowed into a catalog of faults. Not by Razia, not by Arif, not by anyone. She started small. She kept a ledger in a hidden drawer, a place to write down instances of cruelty and moments of kindness. She wrote down dates, words, faces, not to punish herself, but to remember she was more than the house's complaints. She practiced speaking in the mirror. First whispers that grew into sentences, and she began to think about what revenge could mean. Not the wild, destructive kind people saw in movies, but a careful return, a reclamation. If they would make her small, she would become large in ways they could not touch. If they would measure her worth with dust, she would measure hers with deeds. It was birthing something dangerous and bright. A plan that would not be driven by revenge's hunger, but by justice's clarity. Final lines slow. Firm music holding a note of resolve. Narrator, Seema's next step wasn't dramatic. It was ordinary. She saved a little money. She called a distant cousin who lived in the next town. She learned the times when Arif left early for work. And she noticed the people in the neighborhood who had stories of their own. She wasn't alone in the small wars inside big houses. In the dark, she whispered to herself, "I will not be erased." And for the first time in a long time, the house felt like stepping stones, not a trap. Morning came like every other, the sound of Razia's bangles clinking, Arif's impatient footsteps, the kettle hissing on the stove. But inside Seema, something had changed. Her silence had cracked, not in anger, but in awareness. For the first time, she looked at the people around her and saw them not as fate, but as choices. Choices she could walk away from. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She smiled. And that was how her revenge began. Seeing Seema quietly sweeping the floor. Razia enters, inspecting every move. "Razia, you missed that corner again. I swear. How many times must I tell you?" "My back hurts just watching you," Seema softly. "I'm sorry." "Mama, I'll fix it right away, narrator. But her eyes didn't lower this time. Behind the softness there was something steady. Razia didn't notice. People rarely do when they think they've already broken you. Music, gentle suspense. Rhythmic heartbeat percussion. Narrator, that night when everyone slept. Seema took out a small blue notebook from under her pillow, her ledger of truth. Every entry was a bruise made visible. She added one more. He ignored me again today. She insulted me about the corner. I didn't cry this time. She closed it and smiled faintly. Step 1 was simple observation. To change the story, she had to see it clearly. Transition, sound of city traffic, chatter. Typing noises, office environment, narrator. 2 weeks later, Seema convinced Urif to let her take a small tailoring course at the Women's Community Center nearby. Razia had objected. Of course, Razia angry. Why do you need a course? Who will handle the house? Are you trying to run away from your duties? Arif stern. If she wants to learn something, let her. It might help her focus. Maybe she'll finally use her time properly. Narrator. That was all the permission she needed. The class was 3 hours long, 3 times a week. But for Seema, it was 3 hours of freedom. She met other women, quiet, fiery, funny, bruised in invisible ways, just like her. A widow starting her own shop. A college girl forced into early marriage. A grandmother learning embroidery to support herself. Each story carried echoes of hers. And in that circle of resilience, she found something she hadn't felt in years. Belonging, seen, the center. Sewing machines humming. Woman in class, you're good at this. Seema, you've got a steady hand. Seema smiling, maybe because it's the only place. I don't feel like trembling. Laughter fills the background, the good kind. Narrator with every stitch. Seema pieced herself back together. Fabric became her language. Color became her courage. She even began to sell small embroidered pieces in the neighborhood. Quietly, secretly. Razia thought she was wasting time. Aref didn't ask. He assumed obedience was the same as love. He would learn soon enough that it wasn't. Transition, tension builds. Sound of plates clattering, an argument rising. Narrator. The first confrontation came a month later. Razia found the money Seema had hidden, a few thousand rupees, neatly wrapped in a cloth pouch. Razia furious. What is this? You're hiding money from your husband. From this house? Are you planning to run away? Seema calmly. It's from my stitching work. I thought it might help with groceries. Razia, you thought? You thought? You think you can handle this house without me? You can't even handle your husband's mood. Arif enters, voice sharp like glass. Arif, what's going on here? Razia, ask your wife what she's been doing behind your back. Pause. A long, cutting silence. Arif cold. Is this true? You're working without telling me. Seema measured. I'm not hiding anything. I just wanted to earn a little. For myself. For us.arif. For yourself. You think this house runs on your petty earnings? You want independence now? Next, you'll start arguing like those women on TV. Sound a slap, but it's muted, distant, symbolic. The camera doesn't linger. Closing parenthesis. Narrator, soft, heavy. For a moment, everything froze. Then Seema stood still, her cheek stung. But her spine stayed straight. She looked him in the eye and said something no one in that house had ever expected to hear. Seema, quiet. Steady. I'm not the weak one here, Arif. You are. Because you need to break someone to feel strong. Long silence, Razia stammering. How dare you, Seema? No. Amma, how dare you? Music swells, cello, piano. Heartbeats, empowerment building, narrator. That was the night she stopped apologizing. She didn't pack her bags. She didn't run away. She stayed, but no longer as their victim. She cooked the next morning, as always. But this time, she didn't wait for approval. She went to her class as usual, but she smiled wider. She talked to her instructor, who mentioned a scholarship program for small business startups for women. That night, when Razia complained, Seema didn't respond. Silence had been her prison before. Now it was her weapon. Scene Seema meeting with her instructor. Soft daylight. Optimistic background music. Instructor, you have potential, Seema. You just need funding and a plan. Apply for this program. You could open your own tailoring shop. Seema hesitant. Do you really think I could? Instructor smiling. I know you can. Narrator. For the first time in years. Seema filled out a form with her full name and her dream written beside it. To open my own stitching and embroidery business. It felt like rebellion inked in blue pen. Transition. Thunder. Storm sounds, metaphorical tension building. Narrator, Razia and Arif didn't like the new quiet in Seema's eyes. They sensed it, that shift from submission to certainty. It frightened them. So they did what people like that always do when their control slips. They doubled down, they taunted her more. Arif withheld affection. Razia spread rumors in the neighborhood, twisting stories about Seema's work, whispering that she was growing arrogant, unfaithful even. But Seema no longer absorbed their venom. She observed. She noted. She smiled because behind that smile she was gathering power, legal documents, bank statements, witness accounts from the women at her class. She was building her defense not for pity, but for justice and seen. Seema at her sewing table. Light falling softly across her face. Narrator soft. Each stitch she made was a reminder. She was crafting her freedom. Thread by thread, and soon, very soon, the fabric of control her husband and mother-in-law had woven would start to tear, not with noise, but with quiet precision. Weeks passed, but Seema's silence now had weight. She still spoke softly, still served tea, still did the chores. But something in her eyes, calm, calculating, cold, unsettled everyone around her. Arif noticed. Razia noticed. They just didn't understand what it meant. They mistook control for peace, and her quiet for surrender. They were wrong. Seen Seema sitting at her sewing table. Late-night sound of the machine, humming softly. Narrator, her nights were no longer for crying. They were for planning. She would sew clothes by hand, pack them neatly, and sell them through one of her classmates who owned a small stall in the market. Every rupee she earned went into a new hidden account under her name, not for escape, but for power. One evening, she visited her instructor again. Instructor, Seema, your designs are beautiful. There's a local exhibition next month. Women entrepreneurs, craftswomen, designers. You should be there. Seema hesitant. Me. I'm not ready. Instructor smiling. You've been ready for a long time. You just didn't believe it. Narrator, those words stayed with her like a spark that refused to die. She started sketching more patterns that reflected her life. One she called the caged bird, another the phoenix. Each piece had meaning. Each stitch was a secret rebellion. Transition sound, morning bustle. Birds chirping, cups clinking. Narrator Razia began to sense the shift. Her control was slipping. The arguments no longer left Seema shaken. Razia complaining. You think you're clever now, don't you? Walking around like some big woman because you earn a few coins. Let's see how far you get when your husband finds out. Seema turns to her slowly. Her tone calm but cutting. Seema, you've complained to him about me every day, Amma. Did it make you happier? Did it make your son love you more? Razia snapping. Watch your tongue. Seema coldly. I've been watching it for years. Now I'll use it. Brief silence, only the ticking of a wall clock. Narrator, Razia's jaw tightened. For the first time she had no words. Seema walked away. It wasn't defiance, it was power reclaimed. Seen Arif returning from work, tired and irritable. Arif, why is the dinner late again? Seema flatly, it's not. You're just early. Arif, raising his voice. Don't get smart with me. You think just because you earn a little you can talk back? Seema, no, I think because I've survived this long I can finally speak. Narrator, he froze. Her tone wasn't loud, it was steady, dangerous in its calm. The kind of calm that precedes a storm. That night, Arif couldn't sleep. He turned in bed, uneasy, replaying her words. The woman who once trembled at his anger now looked him in the eye without fear. Sound, sewing. Machine again, the rhythm matching a racing heartbeat. Narrator. The exhibition day came. Seema stood at her small stall. Simple table covered in bright fabrics and embroidered art. The sign read, Seema's stitches strengthen every thread. Women stopped, admired, bought. Some even took her contact card. A local journalist took her picture by evening. She had sold everything. But what mattered more was how she felt seen. She walked home with pride in her step and a quiet smile. But at the gate, Razia was waiting, storm brewing in her eyes. Razia, you went out again? To show off. Without telling your husband. Seema calmly. He knew. Pause. Razia's face shifts in confusion. Narrator. She didn't tell Arif beforehand. But now she would show him everything, the truth, the proof, the power. Scene, that night, Arif sits at the dining table. Seema places an envelope in front of him. Arif, what's this? Seema, my earnings from this month. And an invitation.Arif, skeptical. Invitation? Seema, to an award ceremony next week. I was chosen as one of the best upcoming women entrepreneurs in the district. Silence. The words hang in the air like thunder. Closing parenthesis. Arif. Quietly, you. You did all this? Seema. Yes, without your permission. Without your mother's approval. Without anyone's help, her voice grows steadier, eyes unwavering. Seema, I wanted you to see that I'm not a burden. I'm not weak. I'm not invisible, narrator. Arif didn't reply. His pride clashed with his guilt. He wanted to yell to restore control, but the truth in her eyes left no room for dominance. Next morning, Razia bursts into the living room, holding the newspaper. Razia, what is this nonsense? Your wife's name in the paper. Are we a circus now? Everyone will laugh. Arif coldly, enough. Oma, she earned that. Razia freezes. Her son had never defended Seema before. Narrator. That was the moment the power shifted. Years of manipulation crumbled in seconds. Seema didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply walked past them, the quiet dignity of victory in her steps. But deep inside, she knew this was just the beginning. True revenge wasn't in words or recognition. It was in making them face themselves, seen. Evening. Seema sits at her window, looking at the sunset. Soft piano music. Narrator. For the first time in years, Seema didn't feel trapped. She didn't feel small. She had learned the greatest truth. Revenge wasn't about hurting back. It was about rising so high that those who tried to break you must look up to see you. Still, she wasn't done. Razia's taunts continued, though weaker now. Arif struggled with guilt, but old habits died hard, so Seema planned her final step, the one that would end it all. Not through violence, not through running away, through exposure. Music grows tense, slow drum beats, strings rising, narrator low. She gathered everything, the ledger of insults, the proof of her earnings, the testimony from her instructor and the women she helped train. And one more thing, a letter that would break their world apart and rebuild hers anew. The screen fades to black. The sound of a pen scribbling fills the silence. Morning sunlight poured into the house like truth, quiet, unstoppable, and merciless. Seema stood in front of the mirror, dressed in a soft cotton sari, her hair neatly tied, her eyes calm. Today wasn't just another day. Today was the day she would end the story they had written for her and start her own scene. Seema in the kitchen, the kettle whistles. She pours tea for Razia and Arif, placing the cups gently on the table. Seema softly, Amma, I made your favorite ginger tea. Arif, yours without sugar. Razia, suspicious? You seem too happy today. What's the reason? Seema, smiling faintly. You'll know soon. She turns away, her expression unreadable. Narrator. By now, the exhibition's success had spread through the neighborhood. People spoke Seema's name with admiration. The women who once pitied her now looked up to her. Razia hated it. Aref couldn't decide whether to be proud or threatened. That was the beauty of Seema's revenge. It didn't scream. It suffocated quietly. Transition. Office sounds, murmurs, phone ringing, narrator, a week later. Seema was invited by the local Women's Development Board. They offered her a small grant to expand her work, but only if she could present her business idea in person, she asked. Arif, to come with her, Seema. It's important. And they said they want to meet my family too. Arif, reluctant. Fine, let's get this over with. Scene fades to the event. Applause. Camera flashes, background chatter. Narrator, it was more than a meeting. It was a celebration of courage. Dozens of women stood on stage, sharing their stories of struggle. When Seema's name was called, the entire hall turned quiet. She walked up calmly, her footsteps echoing in the microphone. Sound of applause fading into silence. Seema confidently, for years. I thought silence was strength, but I learned silence only feeds injustice. I was a wife, a daughter-in-law, a woman who forgot she could be more. But I found my voice, and with it, I found my life. Audience claps. Seema continuing. This business isn't just about tailoring. It's about stitching broken confidence back together. Because every woman deserves to own her story. Thunderous applause. Camera shutters click. Narrator, Arif, sat frozen. His chest tightened, pride, guilt, and disbelief fighting for space inside him. Razia didn't clap. Her lips were tight, her face pale. For the first time, she saw what real strength looked like. And it terrified her. Scene transition that evening home. Heavy silence, Razia furious. So now the whole city knows our private life. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Seema quietly. No, Oma. I showed them the truth. Arif, angrily. Do you think you can just do anything now? Speak in public like that? Do you know how people will talk about me? Seema, people are already talking Arif. Only difference is, now they're talking about me. Short silence, then she places an envelope on the table. Seema, here, Arif. What's this? Seema, my documents. Bank statements? Proof of income. And the letter I sent to the Women's Council with all the details about your behavior and Uma's harassment. He stares, speechless. Seema coldly, they will be investigating soon. You can explain to them why your wife wasn't allowed to step out of the house without permission. Or why your mother reported false things about her every week. Razia stammering. You wouldn't dare. Seema firmly. I already did. Beat. The room goes dead silent except for the clock ticking. Narrator, for the first time. Seema saw fear in their eyes, the same fear they had planted in hers for years. And it felt liberating sound. A door opening, footsteps leaving slowly. Narrator, she didn't shout. She didn't cry. She simply walked out of that house, head high, the weight gone from her shoulders. Outside, the evening breeze felt like a new beginning. She went back to the community center, where the women hugged her, cheering for her courage. Woman in class, you did it, Seema. You really did it. Seema smiling softly. No, we did it. Music swells hopeful strings. Bright piano, narrator. Within months, Seema's business grew. Seema Stitches became a name every woman in town knew. A place where they could learn, earn, and stand tall. Razia and Arif. They faced their own consequences. The complaints reached the local family welfare board. Arif was forced into counseling sessions and community service for domestic mistreatment. Razia, once proud, now avoided by neighbors, lived in the silence she had once given Seema. Seen months later, Seema stands in her shop. Sunlight on her face, her students laughing and working around her. Narrator, the day she opened her shop. She hung a small embroidered frame near the counter. It read, if you hurt someone who did nothing but love you, life will bring it back. She didn't look for revenge anymore. She had already found something. Stronger, justice, dignity, freedom, soft. Music fades into the sound of sewing machines humming like a heartbeat. Closing parenthesis, Seema smiling. Softly to herself, every stitch is a story. Every story deserves respect. Camera pans out, the shop sign glowing softly. Seema stitches strength in every thread. Narrator final lines. And that's how Seema's story ended, not with tears, not with defeat, but with a new beginning stitched by her own hands. Because when you do wrong to someone pure, life always sows its own revenge.